on scale, and well, at least the cigars that are locally available. We do produce cigars in Zimbabwe for those that enjoy cigars. The cigar is, in terms of dollar figures, will cost you 6,667 United States dollars per kg. That same tobacco has been bought on the auction floor for $4.50. So that's not 15 times, that's like 1,500-fold in terms of value addition. So this is why I'm saying that agricultural sector is where you should be. The agricultural sector is the only place that you can really see these figures. But what we do need as Zimbabweans is that we need the value addition to happen in our country. I know a lot of investors want to come, they want the raw tobacco, they want the raw cotton. From our side, we want to, it's a win-win. We want you to have investments in Zimbabwe. We want our country to be able to benefit from that value addition. And we believe that wherever you come from, you have the similar kind of requirements from your governments. So we want to entice you to come, but invest in us, invest with us, rather. Moving on to crop production, as I mentioned, there's 35 value chains. The exportable crops and livestock commodities include maize, sorghum, and other cereals, soybean, oil crops, legumes, macadamia, coffee, avocados, blueberries, citrus, and other key fruit trees. We are truly blessed in this beautiful country. Zimbabwe and China signed the trade protocols. I know this is an EU function, and forgive me to the EU ambassadors that are here, but it's good to have a bit of competition too. We have some trade protocols that are signed with the Chinese, in particular the citrus. So it was a very unfortunate situation when I was first appointed 7 years ago. All our citrus was going to South Africa, and South Africa were exporting, and they would put a sticker on our citrus that said "Made in South Africa," but it was a made in Zimbabwe commodity. We're also looking at blueberries, industrial hemp, medicinal cannabis. Production can be done through partnering A1, A2 farmers for joint production or contract production, also partnering with state-owned enterprises like ADA, which is our Agricultural Rural Development Authority. We have farms. I also am very proud of an organization called the FCCA, that's Food Crops Contractors Association. This is a private sector-led initiative where the major players in the milling industry joined forces to be able to contribute to at least 40% of raw material to be grown. So basically, they're a conglomerate or an organization that comes together, funds farmers grow for them, and then this produce now feeds into the milling sector and milling industry. They've done considerably well. 2 years ago, they contributed 72% of the wheat that we produced in this country. And the wheat that we produced 2 years ago, we smashed records. It was the highest. And I'm proud to tell you today that we last season, we almost grew twice of the requirement that we needed in this country, which was much more than ever before. And we only started growing wheat in this country in 1962. So the private sector has really come on board to help and play ball, so to speak. With regards to livestock production, for those that think that we are a crop country, unfortunately we are not. We're actually a livestock country. So the backbone of the agricultural economy is actually livestock. So livestock plays a key role in ensuring food and nutrition security, draft power, foreign currency earnings. Under the Livestock Recovery and Growth Plan, we are focusing on things like genetics, improving our husbandry to ensure that we continuously produce better breeds and increase the contribution to the economy. The government is increasing the national herd through establishing.
And in today's headline, we're proud to announce the first ever EU-Zimbabwe Business Forum, themed Unlocking Sustainable Trade and Investment under the Global Gateway.
Opportunities, rather. As you know, climate change is here to stay, and it is our job as government to try and mitigate against climate change. Part of probably the foremost two greatest initiatives that we have are dam construction as well as irrigation development. So under dam construction for irrigation and water supply to communities, dam construction itself is not the project. We actually have 19 major dams on our books. The priority is to Gwai Shangani and the Kunji dams. Why I say that the dam is no longer the project is because the dam itself is an enabler. It brings you the water, but from there, we are looking at irrigation development, we're looking at power generation, we're looking at tourism that comes from that. So the Gwai Shangani, but it isn't. For those that are interested, as I mentioned, but it isn't. For those that are interested, as I mentioned, we have 19 dams on our books. I could tell you a lot about Kudu Dam, specifically because it's in my constituency. Kudu Dam, I'll put it out there. You can irrigate 35,000 hectares of land. You can generate 20 megawatts of power. So there's a lot of exciting times in terms of the dam construction. But this is our priority so that we can ensure that we mitigate against climate change. Moving on to large-scale irrigation development, we are blessed with 10,700 dams, which are small, medium, and large scale. We can irrigate 2 million hectares of land in Zimbabwe. Disappointingly, we only irrigate 217,000 hectares of irrigation. So we're less than 10%, or around about 10% of our national capacity. And this is why every now and then we can declare that we're food nutrition secure. But as soon as we have a drought, then we have to declare disaster simply because we are not at where we should be. Where we should really be under our irrigation, our accelerated irrigation development and rehabilitation plan is that we need to have 497,000 hectares of irrigation. 350,000 hectares of that must be put for cereal crops. Those that know simple mathematics, 350,000 times about 5.5 metric tons per hectare gives us 2 million metric tons of grain. That's in summer, 2 million metric tons of grain in winter. We only consume 1.8 million metric tons a year, so you can understand the surplus is massive. Now, we also have other initiatives like the Presidential Input Program, other rain-fed schemes. Once you contribute that, Zimbabwe has easily the capacity to grow 6 to 8 million metric tons, but again, the consumption is only 1.8 million. So 6 million metric tons capacity can be exported to the region and internationally quite easily if we can step up our efforts in the irrigation development field. With regards to the irrigation development, again, under our Rural Development 8.0 program, we're drilling 35,000 bores and 35,000 villages. We're also drilling 9,600 bores and 9,600 schools around Zimbabwe. We are now converting, we've taken a step further, we are now converting these bores to what we call village business units because we believe farming is a business. So these are 1 hectare plots. So the 35,000 I mentioned are equivalent to 35,000 hectares of horticulture. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to answer the issue of food security, the nutrition security, the fiber security, and the oil security of our villages while we meet the condition of our president, which is Vision 2030, which is the upliftment of each and everyone's livelihoods into a middle-class society. The 35,000 hectares, or 35,000 VBUs as we call it, is a massive opportunity because if we aggregate that, you can imagine the production. Linda will be smiling from here to the bank, I believe, because 35,000 hectares of horticulture is massive. You can understand the income generation that comes from that, the nutrition security, the food security, and this is what we're about. So aggregation is a must that will lead into rural industrialization. I'm going to jump the next slide. I didn't particularly like it, but it was on the slide, so I can take advantage that it's not, and I won't even tell you what it is, so no one can falter me for that. Another opportunity is mechanization. You can understand the vast tracts of land that we have. We're even talking about the capacity to grow our agriculture to 2 million hectares. So right now we have a serious deficit in mechanization. We should have currently 40,000 tractors, and we don't. We only have 15,000 tractors, so we have a deficit of 25,000 tractors. We also should have at this stage 600 combine harvesters, but we don't. We have 150 functional combine harvesters in country, so we have a deficit of about 450. I'm very happy and proud to tell you that I'm also part of the Mechanization Alliance, which was an alliance formed by my boss, the minister, and we have quite a few successful programs. This alliance is an alliance worth $500 million United States dollars. I'll just give you 3 examples of 3 successful programs. One is the John Deere program, which is worth $50 million United States dollars. The Belarusian programs, we're now in phase 3. First phase was 52 million, second phase was 52 million, third phase was 169.9 million United States dollars. And then we have the Bain New Holland, which is a $20 million scheme. So these programs are very successful. The farmers have taken on these initiatives, but these are just a few of many. Like I mentioned, the figure of 500 million United States dollars. So if you are in the mechanization game, please join the Mechanization Development Alliance and be part of our success story. Zimbabwe has a comparative advantage in certain horticultural products, such as blueberries. For example, we harvest a few weeks before larger producers like Peru. I'm also very happy to tell you that we're one of the largest producers of blueberries now in the world. Linda will come after me and she'll tell you a lot more. We partnered with the Horticultural Development Council, which is something that was born many, many years ago, which was called the HPC. And then when we came in 2018, we had a good discussion, and we gave rebirth to this organization. And they themselves decided to name themselves the HDC. This is a private sector-led initiative. They're basically the Apex Council. We work very, very well with them. We're very proud of them. But we still have so much to do, especially in the aggregation field, especially in the hub and spoke. I've listed a lot of different opportunities here in this space. I'll just name it, I'll just read it very quickly. Tomato paste production plants, the juice making plants, drying and tea processing plants, livestock products processing plants, that's meat deboning, skin hides processing, value addition, frozen potato chips plants, onion drying plants, tobacco cigarette manufacture, ginning and textile manufacturing, seed and oil production, animals feed production, ethanol and biodiesel processing plants. The list is literally endless, and that's why I say that agriculture is where you should be. In terms of the fertilizer value chain, we use a lot of fertilizer in Zimbabwe. We are just shy of 800,000 metric tons demanded of fertilizer per year. Unfortunately, we only produce 400,000 metric tons of fertilizer. We do have local capacity to produce basil fertilizer, whereas ammonium nitrate for the most part is imported into our country. So massive opportunities there for joint ventures. There are 4 major fertilizer companies, so the capacity and opportunity is certainly there, but the deficits are there and we import too much, in my opinion. The rest of the slides, I'll take the opportunity that it's that it's not up there. It's basically within what I was saying with regards to the opportunities in the agricultural space. I would love to give other people time to talk. This is just from the government point of view. We're very serious through our transformation plan. We've moved mountains. I've been in this ministry 7 years, and I can tell you what we've done since 2018, since the new government came in, is quite considerable. Being an agricultural-based economy, if we don't perform well, there's no way that the economy can perform well, and our economy is performing well. It's on the up. So it is part and parcel of the agricultural space. But the deficits, as I mentioned in many, many slides before, are massive. So we need to close those deficits, especially in irrigation development. This is our priority within government. So if we do have investors...
And in today's headline, we're proud to announce the first ever EU-Zimbabwe Business Forum, themed Unlocking Sustainable Trade and Investment under the Global Gateway.
17,000 functional hectares that I mentioned, and just shy of the 500,000 hectares that we require, so that this country finally becomes food, nutrition, fiber, and oil secure, not only for today and tomorrow, but for the foreseeable future. Those that know Zimbabwe was always called the breadbasket of Africa. It didn't mean that we produce the most food in Africa, but we're the only country in the continent that can grow 2 to 3 times more than its annual requirement. And that's why we were the breadbasket of Africa. We want an Africa that's united, and we as Zimbabweans want to provide the food security to other African countries. We don't want to take advantage of our brothers and sisters in other African countries, but we want to create a food hub in Zimbabwe where, should they have an unfortunate drought or whatever comes ahead, that we can provide them with whatever food they require. It might not be all, but at least some part of it. So, ladies and gentlemen, with those few words, I think, Ranga, I think I've done my job for now. And then, if should you have any other questions at the end, I'm here until I'm released by my brother. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister, for that quite detailed outline of the agricultural sector in Zimbabwe, including horticulture, livestock. Maybe just a few highlights of, so that we have it in mind as we go along. I think you highlighted something important there from a tenure perspective, where you did indicate that the title deeds are bringing to an end or to a close the land reform program, because this has been one of the biggest concerns for investors, the issue of tenure. I know government did start issuing joint ventures so that investors had the opportunity, with some protection from government, to come in and invest on land for production. So I think it will be important to close that as far as tenure is concerned. But also I think the question that has to arise is, obviously these title deeds, they're being paid for. And that's one of the discussions that we're now having amongst Zimbabweans with land. Do they have the capacity to be able to pay government for that title? And obviously this is something that's important to look at from an investment perspective. Do our farmers invest in paying off government for the title deeds, or invest in actual production on the land? And these are important questions. Yes, Zimbabwe is a sleeping giant. That must be unlocked. We have quite a significant water capacity in this country. But one of the challenges, I think, as you're aware, Honorable Minister, is the conflicts that then sometimes arise within the agricultural sector between, for example, wheat production and horticulture production. How then do you allocate water? Because then water becomes a critical resource to be able to be successful with the investment. I know in the citrus sector in Chekutu, for example, they have had those challenges of water guarantees. So I think it's also important to then be able to regulate that and ensure that's guaranteed to our investors. Mechanization is important. All those dams, I think the reason is that maybe there's not enough mechanization then to unlock that value of land that's irrigable. So thank you so much. Fertilizer. Another big question has always been about cost efficiency of our fertilizer. And this, in many cases, has led to challenges for farmers. So again, these are some of the areas I think Linda at the private sector, HDC, as the private sector, I think is engaging government to try and address these so that investors can actually come into a conducive environment. Thank you. We will have questions. I will not release them until all of you have asked a question each, and then you can leave. Meanwhile, I'll ask Linda to come up, please, from HDC. I think she had already made an earlier presentation, but she's got more for us. Thank you, Linda. On opportunities and challenges in the horticultural sector.
Zimbabwe's horticultural sector is flourishing, driven by the unified efforts of the Horticultural Development Council, HDC. Established in 2020, the HDC is a non-profit, membership-based organization dedicated to transforming Zimbabwe's horticultural industry. HDC's mission focuses on improving business efficiency and competitiveness for a wide range of export producers, including nuts, fruits, flowers, and vegetables. We represent and coordinate the interests of export horticultural producers across the country, acting as a strong advocate for their growth and transformation. With support from the Ministry of Lands, Agriculture, Fisheries, Water and Rural Development, we lobby for favorable policies, better infrastructure, and investment opportunities to boost production. Our efforts have resulted in significant growth. Export volumes of high-value crops like blueberries, avocados, and citrus continue to rise, creating jobs, attracting foreign currency, and contributing to Zimbabwe's economic growth. HDC collaborates with key associations representing various crops and producers, ensuring that the majority of horticultural growers in Zimbabwe are represented. This includes groups like the Citrus Growers Association, Avocado Growers Association, Berry Growers Association, and more. We also support new exporters in reaching their goals. Our vision extends beyond large producers. Through outgrower schemes and smallholder development programs, we are committed to spreading the benefits of horticulture to communities nationwide. Together, we are revitalizing Zimbabwe's horticultural industry, delivering economic and social progress, and ensuring a bright future for horticulture in Zimbabwe.
Yeah, I think that was a pretty broad introduction to who we are and what we do. So I'll just head straight into why invest in Zimbabwe's horticulture industry. Congratulations to all of you for being in the right room today, because horticulture is definitely the place to be. So strategic location. We have access to SADC, COMESA, and AFCFTA markets. The impact being it's a 1.3 billion consumers. We're resource rich, which means we have diverse crops like you've just seen in the video, citrus, avocado, blueberries, flowers, with a very high export demand. Diverse agroecological zones, ideal for horticulture. And our competitive advantages are that we have abundant water resources, skilled labor force, and a strong history. As I mentioned in the morning session, we have a over 40-year history of exporting to the EU. Horticulture is a priority sector under the Global Gateway. There's 150 billion for Africa by 2027. And our export potential at the moment is, we are currently on 80 million, and we have the potential to go to 2 billion annually. I'll go into more detail about that shortly. We've already said who we are. We're the apex body that was formed in 2020 by exporters, government, and financial institutions. Our mission is to revitalize Zimbabwe's horticulture sector through collaboration and investment. And through our membership, we represent over 85% of Zimbabwe's horticulture export turnover. Our membership currently is existing exporters, new and emerging farmers, and we also have trade partners in terms of logistics, inputs, and finance. So let's just talk about the 120, it's grown since I last spoke. 120 years of collective experience. So our oldest exporter is 40 years, but collectively all of these products, we have 120 years of experience. And our main markets being EU, the Middle East, China, and in the EU, obviously Netherlands, Netherlands being the hub and the gateway for our product into the EU market. We spoke about HDC's strategic priorities. These are aligned to government's horticultural recovery and growth plan. So strengthening the institutional arrangements, for example, HDC that we've just mentioned. Enabling policy and regulatory environment. So this is the platform that we really have to engage with government on the policies and regulations that are hindering our access to investment or our access to market. Expanding the horticultural production base and the development of smallholder, building an inclusive sector. And through this, or hub exporters have over 40 years of collective experience. And so integrating smallholder farmers into the sector through that experience. And this also buys down the cost of bringing in new players into the export industry. The EU is a phytosanitary market, as I mentioned this morning. And because of that, there's a heightened cost of getting the product to the market. I think we're one of the most audited industries on the planet. And I'm not talking financial audits. You heard ZIMRA speaking about that they go and do inspections on farm. We have phytosanitary inspections on farm. We have global gap inspections. We have SMETA, so I mean, we're squeaky clean when it comes to product to market. Infrastructure and logistics is another opportunity for investment, and as well as obviously financing and investment for that growth. Access to export markets, sustainability and climate smart agriculture, and also opportunities for value addition or agro-processing. All of these strategic priorities are aligned to the EU Global Gateway priorities of green growth and inclusive trade. Key export crops and opportunities for investment. I've just mentioned a few. We've got a slide later on that'll go into the whole opportunity that's available within horticulture. So mainly fresh produce, and then the impact is shown on the far right-hand side, impact in terms of job creation. Because it goes beyond, with export goes beyond livelihoods. Your impact is felt so much greater in terms of raising the buying power of our farmers. Citrus, avocado, blueberries, obviously. A lot of hype about Zimbabwean blueberries. But we do, key, I think, to the success of our export is that we do have a very quality product because of the climate and the opportunities that Honorable Haritatos mentioned in his presentation. There's a multitude of other crops. So what we're saying, currently our export value is 80 million, and we have the potential to reach 2 billion annually by a very small investment. I remember I mentioned the Global Gateway has 150 billion for agriculture for Africa, and our ask is less than 1 billion to see an annual turnover back into Zimbabwe of 2 billion. I'm not going to read out these numbers. I'm dyslexic and I'll confuse you horribly if I go through them one by one. So please feel free to dig deeper yourselves. I mentioned the hub and spoke model and that this is the opportunity for engagement and for bringing in new farmers into the industry and building a really inclusive industry. This is sort of a visual of what that entails, the hub being the real cog in the wheel, the farmers, the actual wheel driving the wheel to go forward. And then all of the ancillary services around that. So this is real opportunity for sideline trade businesses to take part in the value chain as well. Benefits to investors and partners. There's aggregated supply and scale. There's centralized coordination and an export-ready production base. Key projects then within our industry. We spoke about agro-processing. It's the obvious one because we'll always have extra produce that doesn't make it to market. So there's a lot of opportunity for value addition, juicing, pulping, drying, etc. Renewable and solar energy, we're an industry that relies heavily on cold chain, and we need to be looking at renewable energy and how we can not be a drain on a very old energy supply pipeline that we have at the moment. So really looking at incentives to how we can trigger investment on farm into solar power and then throughout our value chain because we do need the cold chain to be maintained for quality. And then again, the logistics. So the EU's export corridors are mainly air freight and sea freight. We're a land-linked country, so we rely heavily on our partners, our neighboring partners, for our market access. So what is our ask to EU partners? We are seeking partnerships and joint ventures in production, processing, and export. We're asking for investment in green technologies and climate-smart practices. We're really looking at partnerships for logistics and cold chain supply development and export market linkages, EU buyers and distributors, capacity building and technology transfer. So why partner with HDC in all of this? Like I mentioned before, we represent 85% of current export horticulture export turnover. We're a coordination body, so for the coordination between smallholder farmers and commercial producers. It's a hard sell. Our farmers, our commercial producers have one headache, and to tell them that they need 3,000 more requires quite a bit of coordination, which we're able to provide with our parent ministry as well. So driving export promotion, value addition, and investment facilitation. We're aligned to industry growth with the Vision 2030 that was mentioned, and under the National Development Strategy 1, and now looking forward to NDS 2. We're established export compliance experience, so we have all of those audits that I mentioned before, Global Gap, HACCP, all of those good things. And HDC acts as your coordination partner, facilitating sector entry and growth. And with that being said, I'll end there. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Linda. I think what an important thing that Linda forgot to mention, she's being humble, I think, is that HDC is the only private sector-based organization that is actually mentioned in a statutory instrument, where government is actually acknowledging working with HDC as far as growing the horticulture sector. And in that statutory instrument, government is also acknowledging the reach within the private sector, how you can then bring the private sector together. So I think that's an important thing to note, because then it speaks to how does the public and the private work together to grow agriculture in Zimbabwe, the synergies that are important. And Linda repeated another point, I think the minister highlighted it as well, comparative advantage of Zimbabwe. The big question, I think, for both when we're getting into the question and answer now is, why are we then not using that comparative advantage? Zimbabwe has some of the best, if not the best, climate. We've got water. We've got the skills, labor. Why are we not harnessing that as much as we can, so that we can tenfold or multiply what already is being done in the agriculture and horticulture sector? Niche markets. I know Michael is in here representing coffee and also part of an HDC member. He's always talking about Zimbabwean coffee being some of the best quality coffee that's used to blend other coffees. So again, that's a niche market. Are we taking advantage of these things? More so, I think Linda spoke earlier about a Team Zimbabwe. How effective is Team Zimbabwe? Because I'm sure the European Union and the countries within the EU or outside of the EU are looking at Zimbabwe and saying, can we easily access Zimbabwe's potential and what it can then produce? Is the team working together? And in that team, the Ministry of Lands was put as a goalkeeper, I think. Are they a defensive goalkeeper? Are they an attacking goalkeeper that lets the ball flow so that HDC and the other team members like Zimtrade, ZIDA, everyone is working together to grow the agriculture sector? So these are some of the questions. Is the public and the private working together to grow agriculture in Zimbabwe and to grow horticulture in Zimbabwe? I think it's time for our questions. We'll start with questions for just the minister and Linda, and then we can go on to our panel so that we don't forget some of those questions. So any questions for them, please? Yes, sir. So, sorry, sir. Do we have a roving mic? Do we have a roving mic? Thank you. Someone can just help and pass it on. Thank you.
Is it okay? Sasha Nožić-Serini, Slovenian Business Club and International Center for Promotion of Enterprises. So my question to the distinguished speaker is how the International Center for Promotion of Enterprises can help to gain this agenda for Zimbabwe and Slovenian Business Club. So very shortly, and also for private sector, the same question. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I think that's an offer to help or to partner. Any other questions? Maybe 3 questions, and then they can answer after 3 questions. All right, we'll come back to you, sir. There's the gentleman there, and then we'll come back to the gentleman.
My name is Privilege Mushanir, German TV, Deutsche Welle. My question is to the Deputy Minister, Honorable Haritatos. Farmers, particularly in the horticulture industry, in the outlying areas like Chipinge, they are crying about the road infrastructure. It has become so expensive for them to export their produce, particularly those that are exporting avocados to the EU, because by the time the refrigerator trucks leave South Africa, come to pick the avocados, get to South Africa, some of them are bruised and they will never make it to the EU because they are condemned. What are you doing for them on that particular note?
Thank you. The third question, then we can have answers coming in. Can we have some for Linda as well, please? It seems the minister is the only one on the hot seat at the moment.
Okay, I'm Engineer Oswald Chakwanda. I am a farmer, and I also sit on the Horticulture Marketing Technical Committee, which works with Linda, the Horticulture Development Council. Now, for the minister, I would want to ask, there are projects that we would want to develop. I've tried to initiate one big project which has got very huge interest. It's the Kondo Dam project, which is an irrigation capacity of over, I think, 190,000 hectares. It's Kondo Chitowa Dam project. Now, that dam project has power generation capacity of about 300 megawatts, and it has potential to export about, to hold about 6 billion cubic meters of water. And in terms of horticulture, because the Midusabi going down, it's now the preferred area to do the citrus production because of the challenges that are happening in the upper parts of Zimbabwe. So it's strategic for government to develop those projects because it opens up land in the strategic areas where we can develop horticulture even at a large scale, and then we can use that land to then produce horticulture for export into the global market. What is government doing? Because when I tried to get feasibility study documents for such a big project, there are no documents where you can actually talk to investors holding. What is government doing in terms of investing in feasibility studies and producing documents that can make those projects at least, to move forward? And to you, Linda, the Horticulture Development Council is doing a fantastic job, but I think you need to increase your reach to the farmers. Most farmers are not aware of the Horticulture Development Council, and most of the export opportunities that are there, the farmers are not even aware. I think we need to have a concerted effort between government and yourself to increase visibility to the actual farmers who produce, then they will know these opportunities. A lot of farmers are producing, but they don't know where to sell their product, especially export markets. Thank you.
Thank you. Maybe I'll come back to you, sorry. I'll allow the minister and Linda to answer those questions. The first one was from our Slovenia delegate about how they can work with Zimbabwe.
Thank you very much. I was trying to be a gentleman and offer Linda the hot seat first, but she humbly rejected it. To the gentleman, I thought you were Italian. I was going to say buonasera. Oh, you're half Italian. You see, I can hear. I lived in Italy, so. So in terms of the center, unfortunately, I don't know your center very well, but what we would like from especially like these kinds of engagements is first and foremost, for you to come to Zimbabwe, that wasn't a small ask. So I'm talking to someone who's already committed, because if we were talking in Italy or Slovenia or wherever, it's a different kind of story. You coming here, that means you've already done some form of due diligence to see what our country is. We're probably not the best country in terms of selling our story. Yet you come here and you're inundated by the beauty that Zimbabwe has. The beauty physically, the beauty by the people, the climate itself. We complain bitterly in winter when it's 22 degrees Celsius. We complain bitterly in summer when it's 28 degrees Celsius. You know, so these are the things that we have that we don't know. It's only when you leave Zimbabwe and you travel that you actually see how beautiful your own country is. So from our side, it's our request from you is to take the right story out there, to take the story that there's massive opportunity, that there is actually something going on in that country. We were plagued by 2 decades of terrible press about this country, and we probably need to pay some serious consultants to actually try and undo the last 2 decades of negativity towards Zimbabwe. But like I said, you coming to Zimbabwe, you see firsthand what we can offer. So that, first of all, is the story. That's number one. Second, anything we do in farming is demand-driven. So you on the other side, you may have access to markets or have connections. A farmer will not grow anything unless the demand is there. So locally, you heard what I mentioned that, you know, for the most part, we are food secure, but as soon as we have a drought, we're food insecure. So any locally grown cereals can be consumed in Zimbabwe, because even if we have an excess, we'll keep it for a year that we do have a drought. But things like horticulture, no farmer is going to speculate. There's no farmer that's going to go and grow 50 hectares of blueberries unless they have a market. So probably where we need the second most is assistance in ensuring that we tap into the right market with minimal middlemen, because that's another plague thing that we have, is that we have a lot of middlemen. A lot of strange things that happen in an export world. We want to be able to export to end users, not necessarily consumers, but supermarkets and that, so that we cut out all the unnecessary people in between. So if you can assist us with that. The third thing that we have challenges in Zimbabwe is about finance. Finance is very expensive. You know, it's associated to the risk of the country, but there's also smart ways and blended finance techniques that can come in. I'm very grateful to the EU. They have taken the initiative. They've used our local banks like NMB, for example, where we have facilities of 30, well, they have facilities of 30 million, 40 million euro that have passed through the banks. So we need more of those facilities, not facilities to government directly, because you know I have a big family and whatever money you give to me, I'm going to lend to my family. We want it to be fully commercial, you know, so that you don't involve any politics. I'm a politician, you know, you don't want to involve me in that. But guidance, I will guide you. You use a commercial bank so that it's full transparency, and that you can have full confidence in the system. So we need to access more into the finance. Knowledge and skills transfer is also critical. We have very skilled people in Zimbabwe, but you know, especially the horticulture industry, especially in technology, it's something that's always forever changing. So we need to be able to bring in good technology, good techniques, good type of seed, the type of varieties that grow well in our country. So these are, I think, in broad, it's a short but long list. I think this is where, without knowing too detailed about your organization, but this is probably where I would really request to have as much support as possible. The second one is with regards to road infrastructure. Now, our ministry is 5 ministries in one. I don't know if you're lobbying for us to be the Ministry of Transport also, to be the 6th, but nonetheless, it's a problem that affects our farmers. So we're together on this. You know, there's a lot of organizations involved. There's a rural district council, there's the local authority themselves, there's Zinara, there's the Ministry of Transport themselves. You know, there's a lot of players that can have the opportunity of fixing a lot of the roads. But a lot of people look towards government to do something. Now, I'm a farmer. I grew up on a farm. I was born on a farm. I don't remember us ever waiting for rural district councils to grade our roads. We had a massive grader. I remember very well from when I was a kid, and that grader did our roads continuously. We never once, for 1 second, ever waited for government to clean up our roads. I know it's a tall task, but what I'm trying to say is that let's take ownership for some of these things. Because if we're going to sit back and wait for central government to be able to come to me, if you're in Chimanimani or Chipinge or Ngutu, and you're going to wait for a government to do that when there are lots of other priorities ahead of your road, where you, by the way, are actually gaining commercially, I think it'll be an unfair task. And I'm sorry to put it like that, but that's what I do. In my own constituency, I have a dedicated grader that grades every single road in my constituency. I do not, and I know there's no voters in my constituency here, unfortunately, but I do not wait for Rural District Council to grade a single road in my constituency. I'm not saying I have the best roads in the country, but it's my initiative as a leader from the ground. So I believe farmers need to get together. And I think it now needs to stop being a blame of the central government or someone else. Let's start blaming ourselves. I'm a farmer. I go through, for me to get from my farm to Kadoma, I go through probably another 20, if not 30 farms to get through to town. So why don't I initiate, go to all the 20, 30 farmers and say, guys, you know what? To grade this road, it's going to cost $2,000 of fuel, 2,000 liters of fuel. Can each one of us put 20 liters or 30 liters or 100 liters? And I tell you, as a community, if we were united and we work together as farmers, we will do wonders. And then if the government comes afterwards, that's just the cream. But let's not prioritize and say we're going to destroy our produce just to prove a point. So that's my take. Please don't quote me. But that's my personal view. It's not the view of the government of Zimbabwe by any means. Then the third one, the Kondo Chitoe Dam. It's actually one of the 19 dams. But this is a massive dam. I can't remember, the last time I looked at it was 2019. If I remember correctly, it was a $1.4 billion project. It was the highest the amount required. Now, again, I'll give you the talk about government. Now, we talk of a dam. Your question was, why is government not? But does government have unlimited money? Should we not be looking at each other and saying, you know what, can we not entice the private sector to come in? Because there's build, operate, transfer, there's build, own, operate, and transfer. So that we do have techniques where we bring in the PPPs to bring in the private sector. And this is what I actually did. Funny enough, I was fortunate enough in 2019 to be invited by the Greek government, and I went and I presented this myself to the Greek government in 2019, where I was trying to get investment into the country. This dam is too big for us to put on our books. I won't lie to you, and I'm not looking for a vote here. I won't lie to you and say that government has this kind of money. Government does not have this kind of money. We need the private sector to come in. Government can provide some part of it, for sure. The specialty, the techniques themselves, we have the engineers, we have Zinwa that have a full staff complement that can help. So we can save a lot of money, but we need to sell these ideas out there in the sense that by building the dam, what does that mean for water security for sub-Saharan Africa? What does that mean for the production of crops? What does that mean for power generation? You talked about a 350 megawatt plant. We are almost at self-sufficiency as the power in the country. If we produce 350 megawatts and we bring in a few more solar plants, that means we can quite comfortably be able to export a lot of our power. And what that means is that it's a Zimbabwean-based project, but look what it does for the region and beyond. So I totally support you, but I think help us entice foreign investors as well as local investors. If we can bring in conglomerates that can come together, that each and everyone puts some money together that makes the $1+ billion required for this dam, I think it will be a massive development. You can imagine what it will do not only for all the people I talked to you about, but the local community that will benefit from this dam production. Thank you.
There was a question on information sharing, or that was the dam one. But just to emphasize, one of the challenges that we have from an investment point of view is information sharing between the public sector and the private sector. I remember at one forum where even ZIDA highlighted that challenge where they would then promote a certain investment out there. And then when the information was then requested, they were not then getting the information that they've presented. And this, of course, causes challenges of confidence. So information sharing is very critical. And I believe that's why HDC is also there to be able to create that bridge between its members and investors. And then there was the question question about reach to farmers. I think you did ask about HDC and how it can reach out more to farmers. That's for you, Linda.
Yeah, so communication is it's a huge challenge. It's not a challenge, it's that it's also manage the expectation of what we're able to do. So while we build the capacity of HDC to reach out to 5,000 or more, which is our aim, farmers, we need to be sure that we have the capacity internally to be able to give you the correct information. So that being said, reach out to us. You know that we're around now, and spread the word around. We are on, we have a website and we are on social media as well. And as we're growing, as the organization is growing, we will reach more and more farmers out there. But to go and reach out to 30,000 or more farmers when we don't have the capacity to help you internally would just frustrate you. So yeah, but by all means, I'll be around, also to the Slovenian business. Reach out and let's connect and see what we can do to help each other. Wow, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Maybe just another highlight. There was mention of, the minister highlighted the EU and the support that they've been giving, including funding certain programs, development programs. A challenge that is also arisen within the horticultural sector from a financing perspective is horticulture-friendly financing, if I can call it that. That a lot of the funds, when they come into Zimbabwe through the banks, we don't know what the agreement is between the EU and the banks in terms of when that money comes into Zimbabwe, what are the terms of that money. But that then poses a challenge, and some of that money becomes inaccessible to those in the horticultural sector because of the cost of that money. So for example, if you look at citrus and the long-term crops, avocados, that take a bit longer, like 5 years to mature and to actually become commercial, if you've got a 2-year financing for that, it's not going to work. Citrus will tell you that anything above 8% interest will not work. So I think it's also critical for the EU and other development partners to look at the financing models of the money that's coming in to support horticulture and agriculture in Zimbabwe. Any other questions? Yes, the lady. Our roving mic, please. Is it close by? While we're waiting for the mic to get there, Honorable Minister, you highlighted another important point, that there's been bad publicity for Zimbabwe. And a lot of that publicity has actually been tied to land, and therefore agriculture, unfortunately. And despite the fact that that is the most opportune sector for our economy. So maybe we should start having a Zimbabwe special brand. I like that term, and I've been trying to sell that. A Zimbabwe special brand that actually brands Zimbabwe's agriculture, especially horticulture. Because as our colleagues from Slovenia would say, there's always a story behind a product. So people out there want to know the story behind the product when they put it in their mouth. So if you don't have a good brand and a good story to tell out there, it's then going to be difficult. And that's why when investors come to Zimbabwe, they're so shocked. I've met several investors and clients that, is this really the same Zimbabwe that we hear about? So a Zimbabwe special brand, I think, is important. The lady, please.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Francis. I'm representing NutriCrop, an organic fertilizer supplier. So my question is to Linda, and maybe also the Honorable Minister, in terms of, today we're talking about sustainable trade, and when we talk about farming, there's a lot of talk now with climate change and soil degradation on how we can make it sustainable so that as much as we're producing more and putting more out there, we're making sure that it's sustainable and keeps our environment in check, and we make sure we can produce for more than just 5 years, 20 years into the future. So are there any initiatives or partnerships that you are having, like with companies like myself, who supply organic fertilizers and biostimulants, or with others in the country? And for the Honorable Minister, are there initiatives to sponsor and support smallholders especially, because for them, they already have limited resources. So asking them to go organic or to care about their soil and their impact on the environment might be a bit too much with where they are at. So that's my question for the two panelists. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I come to this end, yeah, there was another one there. It was the gentleman there. I'll come to you, the gentleman there. And then, yeah.
Thank you very much. My name is Shelton. I like the spoke and the hub model, and I also like the issue that the Honorable Minister spoke about, the different, how many were they, the business units that are centered around the balls. Well, I say this because I come from a financial inclusion point of view where I'm really focused on the smallholder farmer, and the elephant in the room, whenever we talk about agriculture value chains, like it or not, it's always going to be finance because it's a major deterrent. So I'm going to make a comment. It was a question before the minister spoke, but he said a lot of things that answered my question. But now it's a comment because of the fact that I know that there is an audience that Linda has and what the minister has that I would like to make an appeal to. The appeal is we need to sit around and structure finance models that are patient for the industry. I see from the development community, I say this because I know EU is around, there are other players. We've had a serious season where we had donors coming in with funds, grants. But I'm re-looking at it. Is it not possible for us to have such a model remodeled, but rather than giving people things that they don't get back, give back, why don't we train them to have a sense of responsibility, train them business, and have some revolving funds with financial institutions so that we can be able to afford the patient and the cheaper funding that is required. Because if we take investor money, sometimes it's not very patient with some of the value chains that we have. Thank you.
Thank you. The gentleman sitting right there.
Thank you. My name is Lovemore. I'm a commercial tobacco and citrus farmer. My question is for the Right Honorable Minister, Deputy Minister. Thank you for, going through the land tenure aspect of things. I think, for some of us who obviously have to work with investors, tenure becomes a very big part of the conversation. My question for you is, as the government has rolled out the current the new land tenure system, the title deeds, when can we expect a firm and final position on institutional title deeds for farms? Thank you.
Thank you. I'll allow either Linda or the Honorable Minister to answer, please, the three questions that have been asked.
I've tried to be a gentleman again, and she rejected. You reject me a lot today, Linda? Thank you very much for the question on sustainability. It's actually quite a topical question. Our main focus of our ministry is food security. Doing it, if it is, then how long can you do it for before you create permanent damage? And we see this in a lot of our farms. A lot of our farms are very acidic. The soils are very acidic because we didn't spend a lot of investment in soil conditioning. The liming, simple processes, and it doesn't cost much, but it becomes a major problem when you 15 years down the line and your pH is on the wrong side of things. So for now, our main priority is to ensure that our country is food secure. Now, as an added benefit, definitely we would love to hear the sustainability side of it. So what we have done is, especially under our presidential input program or our Fumvudza program, we have invited every year suppliers of organic fertilizer to be able to tender for this. So this program, for those that don't know, is a program that assists the most vulnerable of our people in this country. Figures of 3.5 million people in the past have benefited. The last season, we helped 1.8 million people. Basically, these are very poor people that live on vast tracts of land or even small pieces of land, and we provide them just a basic package to support them to be able to grow for themselves. Yes, we do give, especially in the drought that we had last year, we do give food to people that are also vulnerable, but we prefer that we give people the tools so that they can have some form of basic integrity and be the source of their own problem, or not the source, rather, the answer to their own problem, so that they can grow for themselves. And so through our presidential input program, or Pumvudza and Twasa, as we call it, we have allowed people to be able to tender for, so that they can supply organic fertilizers. Unfortunately, organic fertilizers, I think, are still a little bit more expensive, so it might not be a viable option, but certainly something that we do want to look at. There's a lot of push from the international community to bring in viability, sustainability in the tobacco game, in the horticulture game. So I don't think it's something that can't be considered. I think it is something that is definitely most likely going to be considered more and more as we go on and on in life. With regards to our presidential input program, this is actually a climate smart program. So while we're not necessarily using organic fertilizer and we're using synthetic fertilizer, we are ensuring that we have minimal tillage on our fields, which means minimal damage to your soils. And the mere design of the presidential input program, or the Pumvudza program, is to ensure that we keep enough moisture in the soil that is required for the plant to grow well. And what we've seen is we've seen an uptake in yield from below 1 ton per hectare to 5.5 tons per hectare. So it's been a very, very successful program. And we're trying to move it more on that side to be environmentally sustainable. We also have an agroecological tailoring within our ministry that we look at agroecological regions. We have 5 in Zimbabwe. Region 1 is obviously the best, and Region 5 is probably hard soils and not enough rainfall. And those regions, we're pushing in traditional grains which are more climate smart. So from our side, the sustainability is more of ensuring that the farmer is climate smart and implementing climate-proofed initiatives. Even under our village business units, I think I might have even forgotten to say it, the 35,000 village business units that we have are fully solarized. We don't use even 1 kilowatt of electricity. We're using what God gave us, and that's the sun. So that's from my side. I think Linda will add more on that later. And then moving on to Shelton's question or suggestion, finance is one of the major problems, certainly. And there's no agricultural economy without finance. And from our point of view, we've come up with the Agricultural Revolving Fund, which is a fund that we launched a few weeks ago. And from the government side, we will need to put quite a bit of money into that so that our farmers can be able to utilize that fund. There are other banks that we support. There's the Youth Bank, the Women's Bank, for example. AFC, which was within our ministry, which now falls under Mutapa Fund, was also given a lot of seed money to be able to finance. The EU themselves, as I mentioned, had given some money in. We had a very good and successful program that finished in September 2023 with the European Union. And I like what you said about the grants. I don't like grants. I do not like dependency syndrome in any way or form. Even though we are so grateful for the support, I want someone to be able to put a bit of sweat, even if it's 20% and the other 80% comes from a donor partner, that's fine. But you need to have ownership in what you do. You can't be given something for free in completion from 0 to 100 and all of it's free and then expect that kind of program to be viable. So under the EU initiative, we had a matching grant specifically for dairy. And the government as well as the EU would provide, let's say, one dairy cow, and the farmer, the beneficiary, would have to provide another dairy cow. And we saw this being very successful. And just to tell you, those that are international investors, I challenge you to give me another country that moved milk production in 2017, which was 55 million liters, to last year us touching on 120 million liters. It's unheard of that in such a short period of time that you more than double the milk production. Milk production is a 3, 4 year, 5 year game, but we did it in Zimbabwe, and we did it because we had the right support and because we had the right program that allows you as a farmer to have pride in what you do, but to also understand that this is a business, I have to pay it back. And that made all the difference, because that ownership is critical in what we do. And then the last question, this Ranga, you shouldn't have allowed him, because he used to be my head boy in high school. And you should never have allowed Boris to ask a question. You should have immediately said you're conflicted. But anyway, as my former head boy, but he was very good to me. He was a good head boy nonetheless, I must admit. The land tenure question, yes. So I mentioned with regards to the closure of land reform, and specifically what we focused on are individuals. Your question is more about what we used to call the institutional offer letter, migrating that into a title deed that is owned by an organization. And I think that's a very important question, Lovemore, because this is the next step that needs to come. Unfortunately, the new tenure system, although it's been implemented by our ministry, there is a committee that overlooks that, and we are one of the members of that committee. So I believe that we are almost at a stage where something will be announced, but because it hasn't been announced, I cannot preempt it. It could change. But what I can tell you that there is a lot of consideration, because we gave the committee a lot of different types of land leases, land holdings, the A1, the A2, the commercial, but the institutional issues were also part of that. But the focus was first and foremost, let's finish with the people, and then we'll move on to the institutions. What I can tell you is that if you do have an institutional offer letter, it's just as good. Please continue, invest as much as you can, because there's a very strong likelihood that exactly what's happened with the individuals will happen. But like I mentioned, this is a committee that has a lot of ministries involved, even farmers' unions that are contributing. So I think we just have to wait for the final position before you can really have, but continue with your institutional offer letter. You're very safe. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Honorable Minister. I think we have enough questions for that segment of our presentations. We need to move on to our panels now. If I may please ask Liam to get started and share with us what they're doing in their sector, subsector. And these panels, by the way, have nice videos, so that you
horticulture and agribusiness in Zimbabwe since 2018 is absolutely remarkable. We've spoken about all the statistics and the growth and the trajectory we're on. But the most important thing is the dialogue and the interaction. I, as well as being an agro-processor, I was appointed as a youngster to the board of the HDC. 10 of us were summoned to the Deputy Minister's office, selected from private sector, and he said, you guys go and sit in a room, work this thing out, come back and see me when it's done. As soon as it became public knowledge, we had all the government institutions trying to get in as well. And he cracked the whip and said, this is a private sector initiative, and it will remain as a private sector initiative. And the support which the ministry, the Honourable Deputy Minister's boss as well, has given to the HDC is unbelievable. And we owe the success of the HDC not only to our supporters, the EU, the Brits, but more importantly, our enablers, our ministry, our line ministry. I'm also the president of the Commercial Farmers Union for my sins. And I've got something which is very unique. Any morning between 6:30 and 7 o'clock, I can arrive at the minister's office without an appointment, and I can have 30 minutes of his time. I don't know many countries in Africa or in the world where there's that accessibility. Time is made available, and the engagement between private sector and government through our line ministry is second to none. And I just want to give a round of applause to our enablers for it. Coming back to the top, innovation. What you just saw in the video there was innovation. That innovation has been around in Europe for 10 years. I identified it myself about 7 years ago, and I wanted to bring it to Zimbabwe. And it was a 4-year battle, which I won because I'm a little bit stubborn. I don't look bad for a 25-year-old. But I'm very proud to say that that innovation that you saw is the first plant of its type on the African continent. There isn't one in South Africa, and there isn't one in Egypt or anywhere in between. And we've done it, and we've done it successfully. We've taken 70% market share, and we're about to move into regional trade and export. And that's from hard work, dedication, and support from many of you who are in this room. So it's possible. There's tremendous opportunities in Zimbabwe, similar to the small one which we've demonstrated there. That's a baked bean processing line. We've got a capacity of 1,200 tons a month of finished goods. We're running at 24 hours a day at the moment. We hadn't budgeted at running at those levels. We don't have enough raw material, although we've got a big smallholder outgrow project with a hub and spoke, which the HTC is assisting with, as some of the other development partners. It's a process, and there are seasons. We have developed this year in excess of 900 new outgrowers spread across the country, and we're working with agencies. There's a lot of people and organizations who've rehabilitated and capacity built groups of farmers, and they've got all the infrastructure. We spoke about water earlier, what it was referenced. We've got the most stored water in Southern Africa. We've got incredible skill and enthusiasm, and what's absolutely key is for us to be able to harness that and turn it into raw material. Now, a lot of those organizations are falling short when it comes to market linkages. And as Zimbabweans, and Zimbabwean agribusinesses, we're looking to create those market linkages. But we're also looking for international partners to come in and set up agribusiness here. Agribusiness is going to be what unlocks the sleeping giant in Zimbabwe. and that's smallholder production. We need to have offtake agreements for farmers that can take product at scale at a fixed price, which makes them bankable. As soon as we can achieve that, we're going to see incredible growth. Of course, there's a number of enabling policies and environments which need to be plugged onto that. But that's what's absolutely key. We've got so many value chains for those of you who are here exploring. There's dehydration, there's freezing, there's extraction, there's concentration. I've just been across in Europe, and the eating habits of Europeans and Americans are changing from the typical 3 meals a day to more of a snacking diet. And innovation in Europe is now led more towards snacking. There was entire halls which were dedicated to snack food. Snacking 8 times a day is the new norm in Europe and America. And we need to be ahead of that, and that's where the opportunity is. We need people to come in and invest and start manufacturing snack food here, healthy snack food that can be exported. Our opportunities in Zimbabwe are not only for our local market and our regional market, but with African Free Continental Trade Agreement, which has been launched, there's going to be tremendous opportunity for European businesses and any foreign investor to come and establish a base in Zimbabwe to access the African continent. East Africa is the fastest growing consumer base, and we're perfectly situated for investors looking to come and take advantage of that, whilst also taking offtake back to Europe and other markets. Market linkages, which I touched on earlier, are absolutely key. There's a couple of people today who've spoken about production. Too often we see smallholder farmers and small to medium enterprises who've had an idea or a concept, and they've gone out and they've executed it really well, and they've ended up with tons of chia seed or broccoli or cauliflower or lettuce, and the markets aren't there. It's absolutely essential that we work back from the market in everything that we do. And this is the opportunity that we see for European investors with established market chains and linkages in Europe, is to come and bridge that gap, use our resources, and create opportunity and sustainable growth in Zimbabwe. It's a win-win for everybody. Solar PV is a huge opportunity. One of our key barriers is energy. We've got 3 key barriers, and I'm pleased to say that they're all within our control collectively to be able to address. The first one is appropriate finance. We can't be building agro-processing facilities and planting orchards where we start harvesting fruit after 5 years on money at 18% from local institutions. You're dead in the water before you start. We need concessional funding, blended finance, 6 to 10%, and that's what's going to unlock and invigorate growth. We also need funders who are a bit more understanding. Our local banks are extremely stringent. It doesn't matter what infrastructure you've got on the farm. They want bricks and mortar in Harare or 2 times cover on the Vic Falls Stock Exchange. So the barrier to entry for small producers, SME, is incredibly large, and I'm calling on any of you in the finance space to consider engaging with the various organizations we've got here to try and bridge that gap. Energy is our next biggest one. We monitor energy quite closely. We typically are sitting around 60% availability from the grid in the agricultural space, and that generally comes at nighttime. When industry closes, power is shifted to agriculture, and as agriculturalists, we don't want to irrigate our crops at nighttime. Ideally, we're forced to, but we don't want to. You don't want to put your crops to bed wet. It's like putting your children to bed wet. You're going to get disease. So we always try and finish our irrigations late afternoon, let the crop dry out to go into the evening. The opportunity in solar is immense. We've had fantastic dialogue with ZETDC, and they've made a commitment that on specific power lines, if we're able to surpass a specific threshold, they will make that line a dedicated line so that farmers can net meter and have a signal to run their solar PV. One of the big problems with people who install solar PV is they often have to run a generator to send a signal to keep the solar PV going if you don't have battery. So it kind of defeats the object to a certain extent. So the ZETDC has made this commitment, and it's a project which we are working with government to try and unroll, demonstrate a couple of lines. You know, lines I'm talking about aren't very big. Maybe they've got 20 commercial farms and 100 small-scale farmers on. If 15 of the commercial farmers made the investment in solar PV, that would be enough to reach the tipping point. Compulsory liquidation. This is a topic we often talk about. We are always advocating for review of compulsory liquidation. We understand the requirement for compulsory liquidation. The country needs foreign currency for non-foreign currency generating businesses and to service foreign debts. Our ask as the export industry and my advice to any investors coming in is engage with ZEDA and try and get a concession. We used to enjoy a concession where we could service our offshore loans prior to liquidation. Unfortunately, that was taken away 2 years ago. It's still there for the tobacco industry, but the horticulture industry doesn't have it. And when you're being liquidated 30% and being given that in local currency, at the moment it's not a problem because the willing buyer, willing seller system is working. We can take that and purchase imported requirements, but we can't service our loans, loan repayments through willing buyer, willing seller. So it's an area we need to focus on and address. So those are the main barriers. The enablers, I've spoken about the remarkable engagement and accessibility. With this particular investment, there was no financial institution that was willing to back us. Although we had been in the canning industry, manufacturing baked beans since 2012, because we were changing the pack format, it was considered to be a greenfields project. We had to bring in a bit of equity funding, and Tetra Pak, who's the manufacturer of the equipment, stepped up after coming and visiting us and seeing our enthusiasm, and they financed $2 million of the CapEx requirement in this project. So for those of you out there looking for finance, be creative. Banking isn't the only place. Go and see what you can find. But for us to be able to convince the other shareholders in the business, we had a problem with VAT. There was VAT that was payable at the border. From the time the equipment came in to when we were going to be able to start manufacturing, we wouldn't have been able to claim the VAT back. So we engaged with the Ministry of Finance, and they gave us a VAT deferment. So we didn't have to pay the VAT for a 6-month period. That gave us time to establish the business, start generating revenue, and then we were able to do an offset on the VAT. So these concessions are available, and I would recommend you engage with advisors and other people within the industry if you're looking to come into Zimbabwe. I had the opportunity to speak to a group of Qatari investors about 3 weeks ago. And they had been around Southern Africa. They'd been up to DRC, Tanzania, Kenya, Malawi, Mozambique, and Botswana. And they were ending off their tour in Zimbabwe. I think it was because Z was at the end of the alphabet. But it was so encouraging spending some time with them. They actually extended their trip while they were here. And they said, having traveled around Africa, Southern Africa, over a period of about 3 weeks, they said it was absolutely remarkable what they saw in Zimbabwe, and they were not expecting it. Zimbabwe has a lot of bad press, And there's a lot of good things going for Zimbabwe that people are not aware of. They said everybody was friendly. Every single person they engaged with. And it didn't matter if it was someone serving fuel or if it was a bank CEO, everybody was friendly. The enthusiasm is remarkable. The passion which most Zimbabweans have to get something done is second to none. They saw this and they said, this is the jewel, this is where we want to invest. And I heard 3 weeks later that they've made a decision. They're coming to invest here. They pulled their investments from which they had planned for 2 other countries, and they're bringing them to Zimbabwe. So I do hope that over your 3 days here, you get to have the same experience as them. Just to round up, because there's a cat purring behind me. Hopefully it's not a leopard. Scaling from local to export. Everybody, not everybody, a lot of farmers getting into export agriculture or getting into agriculture, the first thing they want to do is become an exporter. It's like deciding you want to be a racing car driver and you want to start in Formula One. It doesn't work like that. You've got to start, learn the basics, build a network. You're going to make mistakes, and you want to make some mistakes when it's cheap, not when it's expensive. Build yourself up. For some people, it might take a year or 2. Some people, it might take a little bit longer. But my advice, I see there's a lot of Zimbabweans here. There's 2 young gentlemen here who we're doing a bit of work with. This is the future of agriculture in Zimbabwe. Do you guys want to stand up quickly? So these guys are from the Young Farmers Federation. We work very closely with them. I saw them sitting at the front here. That's the enthusiasm. They're not sitting at the back writing notes. They're here at the front. They're hungry. They just want to absorb everything that they can. And these are the people we need to invest in, the next generation. My 25 plus 30 years old, yeah, we're on the edge, but we've got to do our bit for the next generation coming through. But my message is take it easy, be structured, and you'll get there. This took 5 years, and it was worth the wait. I was so frustrated. Every year, every month I was frustrated. But I look back now and I say, from Europe, and you'd like to know a little bit more about agro-processing and agriculture and maybe some bars to visit in Harare, you can catch me afterwards. I'll give you some advice. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Liam, for that. I think since Liam has introduced us to Zimbabwe's Young Farmers Association, I also want to acknowledge a young man. The minister, I think, would be happy to hear that we have him here representing Zimbabwe Youth Council, Mnyaradzi. So he is with Zimbabwe Youth Council. And I think you should network together and see how you can drive the agricultural sector. And Minister, I think they're a bit more focused than we were when we were there. So I'll ask the next presenter, please. That's Dominicus Collenberg.
Appreciate it, Dangu. Thank you. Linda mentioned already that you are in the right room, and now you are lucky you hear about the right company, Organic Africa. Founded in 2007, we are the only European-owned and owner-run export manufacturing company in horticulture here in Zimbabwe, founded within the last 2 decades. For you who come from Europe and want to work in Zimbabwe, and for you who are Zimbabwean farmers and want to export, this next 10 minutes might be of interest to you. Only a handful of people here in this room know us. We are always keen to keep in the background. Why are we here present on this podium today? The reason is because we truly believe that the closer cooperation between Zimbabwe and Europe is for the best for all Zimbabweans and all Europeans. That's the only reason why we are here. Support by the European Union is huge, and we are really thankful for this. What you do here is great. And I would like to mention what Liam just said, that the minister is always available, and one can always come to him. And yeah, I would like to support this. Minister Haritatos, thank you for always having an open door for us, for all of us. Organic Africa is an impact enterprise. We have 3 principles, that is good goods, good work, and good wealth. You can translate this into social, environmental, and economic sustainability. And we do this with dehydrated botanicals. We work with small-scale farmers, mainly in the natural regions 4 and 5. A substantial part of our production is exported to the European Union. What makes our model work and of interest to you? Our success is basically built in a deep cooperation between our team here in Zimbabwe, the farmers we work with, and then our customers who are in Europe. Our model is not easily replicable, but I want to explain to you as much as possible. So it's a complex approach with complex systems, methods, instruments, and operations, and it's relatively capital intensive because of the dehydration, of course, and in production and compliance. Further, we are deeply rooted in the European standards, which we have understood, and on the other hand, we understand the Zimbabwean agriculture and regulatory environment. When we talk about the regulatory environment, which is of course important here for horticulture, we have 2 aspects. The one aspect is the product quality, the other aspect is the process quality. When we talk about product quality, we talk about appearance, freshness, flavor, neutral value, safety, and hygiene, as well as shelf life. When we talk about process quality, we talk about things like the audit trails and the certification scheme. Organic Africa is certified to FSSC, EU Organic, NOP Organic, SMETA, Fair Trade, Fair Wild, Rainforest, UTZ, Halal, Kosher. So process quality can be learned and documented. The product quality, however, must be proven through costly laboratory analysis. So when you talk about lab analysis and exports to Europe, then when you produce blueberries, were mentioned before, when you produce blueberries and you harvest them on a Wednesday evening or Thursday morning, you export them on Thursday into the plane. They arrive on Friday in Schiphol on the Netherlands, and then the sample is taken. And the sample, to analyze it, takes normally 1 to 3 working days. So then the analysis results come out next Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday. So by then, the blueberries are eaten. That is slightly different with our dehydrated products. When we export our products, then the container arrives in Rotterdam, and then a sample is taken of every bed. And only once it is analyzed, which can take 2 weeks, only then it is given to our customers. So it's a very different thing. And so we then try to argue about shelf life and that, our products need to be moved as well. But then the reality is, before I came to Zimbabwe 18 years ago, I worked in Egypt, and there during the time of my stay, an archaeological dig was made where a teacher's home, 4,000 years old, was dug up, and they found a jar with tea inside, and it was still, after 4,000 years, good for human consumption. It didn't have any taste anymore, but you can still consume it. So therefore, they found this, and I saw it, which said, written by the teacher, "There has never been such a disobedient youth as today." So that was 4,000 years ago. I really thought that was quite good. So what we do, back to our topic, what we do here is we produce, for example, these things. young farmers, what is that? Exactly, that's an African bird's eye chili. However, organic Africa being organic Africa, we wouldn't put it into Nando sauce or Chiqui chili sauce or whatever. So the bird's eye chili we export are there for your health. So when you put your back out and you have back pain, you go to the pharmacy and buy one of these heat plasters. And the heat inside comes from Zimbabwean chilies. And so we had a group of farmers in the east, and they produced these chilies with us. And when you work with the pharmaceutical companies, you have to adhere to different standards. And if you work with pharmaceutical companies in Europe, you have to adhere to the pharmacopoeia of the European standards. So this was first developed in 1872, so 153 years ago. So there, the chilies were described, so the color of the chilies, the size of the chilies, etc., etc. And of course, it was described how to process it. So 153 years ago, there were no plastic bags. So the farmers are not allowed to harvest into plastic bags, so the farmers pick the chilies and harvest into cotton bags. However, that is quite time consuming. So we had then a group of farmers who developed like a woven cotton basket. Then perfect, and we of course supported that. We bought all the chilies, we then graded the chilies, we packed the chilies, we exported them to Rotterdam, and then we burned the chilies in Rotterdam. So you wonder, what is this business model of Dominic? And the thing is, it wasn't my idea to burn them, it was the idea of the customs there. Why? Because they found DDT in these chilies. DDT was banned in Europe, in most European countries in the 70s, and it is still applied here in Zimbabwe for mosquito control. So, however, our reality is where the chilies were grown, there was no mosquito, so there was no mosquito control. So we didn't know what the story was. And we found out that the T-shirts and shirts and whatever the farmers used to produce these cotton baskets, they came partly from areas where there was mosquito control. So they had a little bit of DDT because the mosquito controllers, of course, sprayed DDT against the bedroom wall. So they had slight, tiny amounts of DDT in them, and then the chilies took it up. We dried the chilies, we processed the chilies, and then we burned the chilies. To give you an impression, the standard in Europe for pharmaceutical and organically certified products is 0.01 milligram per kilogram. So what does this really mean, 0.01 milligram per kilogram? This is, in tons, 0.01 gram per ton. So now the question is, what is really 0.01 gram? So if we have this thing here, 1 grain of salt is 0.1 gram. And this here, in DDT, would contaminate 1 container with 10 tons of chili or any other product. That's our reality we have to meet. So therefore, this is the bridge we build as Organic Africa between the farmers, wild collectors in Zimbabwe, and the standards in Europe. And now you probably understand that with this bridge in mind and with our work in mind, there are not many people who imitate our work because it's difficult. So this is given for all pharmaceutical and organic products. And however, sometimes when we don't have to burn the product in Rotterdam, we get money back from there. And when that happens, there are 2 options. Option 1 is to receive US dollars, and option 2 is to receive euros. We have done this now for 2 decades, and our experience is that US dollar transfers from Europe to here can sometimes take days, sometimes weeks, and sometimes even months. With all our customers who who buy our products in euros, it's the same day. So they transfer, and the same day we have our money here on the EcoBank account. So I thought this is something to mention, because this is something where the cooperation between Europe and Zimbabwe really happens. I mean, it's often faster to receive money from somewhere in Europe than to receive from a customer here in Zimbabwe. So this is something which I thought we should mention. And then let me talk a little bit for 2 minutes about wild collection. There are 6,398 naturalized plants in Zimbabwe. The place where I come from, Germany, we have 5,000 plants, and half of them are commercially developed. So you know, German chamomile, etc. Here in Zimbabwe, there are very few commercially developed. I brought oh no. What is that? No one knows? Sina, yeah. Yes, please. Very good. Kakibush. Sina, there are lots of different names. Tagetes minuta is the Latin name. So you, everyone here, with the exception of people who stayed in this hotel, slept here last night, had breakfast here, and came here now, they didn't see it today. Everyone else of us has seen it, because this year I took out, it was exactly 1 meter and 20 centimeters from our gate at our house. And then I looked on the way to here, I looked at a different place, then Kakibush was everywhere. So it's a product which was introduced to Zimbabwe 120 years ago. There were polo players who brought hay from Argentina, and the hay was fed to the horses, and the seed of the Kakibush ended up in Zimbabwe, and it's now absolutely everywhere, so it's a wheat. So what can you do better than develop a wheat? And so what we did is we started to distill this product, and there, just for you to know, one of the final usages of Kakibush is Chanel 5. So it's part of the perfume. So it's a huge ingredient for the perfume industry. So I absolutely encourage you to work with these wild collection activities. There is so much potential here in Zimbabwe, and the nice thing is you can always work with the rural poor, because it automatically has an impact. You know, to harvest this, you know, there is no extra. It's only your labor. You don't need to plant. You just go and do wild collection. I hope that I could give you a bit of an insight on strengthening this cooperation between Zimbabwe and Europe, again, for the benefit of all Zimbabweans and Europeans. Back to you, Frank.
I didn't know this is medicine. Can I take this? I'm sure it doesn't have DDT in it. But the other thing you did, Zimbabweans were well known. If you put us on something, we just jump on it. So I'm sure that bush will be like taken out of. Everyone will be going after that and coming with it to you. But thank you so much for your presentation. But I think what's most important from your presentation is standards, standards, standards. Horticulture is always known as a low-hanging fruit sector, but very intensive in terms of standards and meeting those standards. Thank you. Karen Jiri from Cicada, please come up. Can you please play a video?
Dedicated to the sustainable utilization of both natural and managed ecosystems. With over 37,000 hectares of land holdings, our core business is ecosystem management. Every nut, every piece of fruit, every tree that we grow comes from a robust and healthy ecosystem. Without this, our business would not exist. Of course, building healthy ecosystems requires a competent and knowledgeable team. We also subscribe to international reporting standards and ensure that individual business units hold certifications like Global GAP, Rainforest Alliance, and FSC. Cicada Agriculture leads the way in regenerative agricultural practices across Zimbabwe. Our footprint covers the eastern highlands of Zimbabwe, where we manage over 5,000 hectares of land. This fertile area receives abundant rainfall and boasts an excellent climate and growing season, which produce high yields for our horticultural exports. This gives us a natural advantage over competitors and the capacity to ride commodity cycles. With 300 hectares of mature macadamias and 700 hectares of younger trees across our 4 estates, we currently produce 1,000 tons of macadamia nuts a year and expect this to reach 3,000 tons by 2030. We are growing 500 hectares of certified avocados, largely for the European market, of which 100 hectares are mature. We have initiated pilot small-scale schemes in the Honde Valley and Chimanimani area and are targeting the annual production of 10,000 tons by 2030. We are the single largest producer of bananas in Zimbabwe, growing over 8,000 tons a year across 200 hectares. Through these operations, we aim to deliver true prosperity, building profitable businesses that properly account for environmental, social, and financial capital. Because everything we produce comes from the earth, we must restore and protect the ecosystems that make our business possible. At the same time, we must nourish the communities who work with and alongside us, so that we can realize our vision of building a thriving business in a flourishing community. This requires clear, transparent, and informed decision-making, and the same evidence-based approach we use in our lab to provide critical analysis for management decisions. With our unique asset base, far-reaching vision, and dedicated management team, Cicada is pioneering a new and environmentally responsible approach for African companies. From this continually evolving experience of ecosystem management, Cicada is not only growing, but growing better. Cicada.
The last part of that video would have said Cicada, growing better, and that is essentially our ambition, to be leaders in the green economy, focused on sustainable agriculture, ecosystem restoration, carbon reduction, and renewable energy. But today we're focusing on one of our divisions, which is Cicada Agriculture. And really and truly, sustainability is at the core of all our business operations. And as you would have heard in the video, ecosystem management essentially is our core business, because everything we do and our future success relies on how we manage the land that we have. We also believe that we're not an island of success, and so we have committed our own funds to date to grow and develop our small-scale farming operations. Over 3 years, we've managed to grow this from 90 farmers in the first year to currently 800 farmers who are part of the program this year. And this is in line with the hub and spoke model that Linda spoke about earlier under HDC. And so, personally speaking, I have very vivid memories in my earlier childhood going on holidays to my grandparents, and we would always end up at the irrigation schemes, on the farms, growing, planting. And so, if I was to ask around this room, and I'm glad that our Honorable Deputy Minister also has a background and has grown up in agriculture, you find a lot of Zimbabweans have history in farming. My parents were taken to school by agriculture, and so I'm standing here as a product of agriculture and looking forward to seeing the future agripreneurs, as we've highlighted this afternoon, being able to make agriculture a business. And so as Cicada, we believe that, with the operations that we're doing with small-scale farming and the commercial farming, together with our agri-tech lab, we are supporting the growth and development of horticulture in Zimbabwe. Now, with any value chain, and especially the agri-value chain, our strength is in our markets. We currently export to the EU, and we believe there's significant scope to scale the volumes that we're exporting at the moment. Some of our challenges, though, are with transit times to get to our markets, and that has been touched on before. And also another area that we're looking at is the perceived country of origin discount when it comes to pricing of our goods. And I think Ranga mentioned earlier some of the initiatives around how we can build Zimbabwe as a brand synonymous with quality horticulture that the EU and the world can import with confidence. Now, when we look at Cicada, we believe that the combination of our assets, our people, capital, and imagination provide a remarkable platform from which to grow a better future in which stewardship and profit can exist and deliver lasting prosperity hand in hand. Now, what you saw in the video today is testament of the effort and investment our shareholders have put into this business. They believe in Zimbabwe. They believe that we are an optimal destination for investment. And having put in tens of millions of dollars into the business, today what we have are existing estates that have been established with capacity to grow to up to 5,000 tons of avocados. But now in order to scale that, we have a mismatch of funding. As was mentioned before by Liam, most of the financing available locally is short-term in nature. But with horticulture, you're talking about up to 8 years of maturity cycle before you reach full harvest. And how are we going to bridge that gap? I believe that forums such as today, which present an opportunity for us to dialogue with our partners from the EU, can essentially be part of the solution of how we can grow horticulture in Zimbabwe. So today, as we extend an invitation to our EU partners to grow with us, I'm going to invite my colleague, Jenna Vanikuk, who's the Chief of Staff and Sustainability at Cicada, and she'll just share with you a bit more about the future growth opportunities with Cicada in Zimbabwe. Jenna, over to you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Karen. I think she's stolen a few of my key taglines, but I think it will show how we're so passionate about this business itself. So as Karen mentioned, I am Jenna. I am the Chief of Staff and Sustainability at Cicada. Just to give you a little bit of background as to what Cicada is, I mean, you saw that beautiful video, which is just such a good show of our estates from the sky. But Cicada is made up of 4 business units comprising Cicada Agriculture, Cicada Forestry, Cicada Carbon, and Cicada Solar. I'll go into a bit more detail on agriculture, but just for those in the room, Cicada Forestry is one of the big 3 forestry companies in this country. Border Timbers is the company based in Mutare, and we have 4 different estates north and south of Mutare, growing about 20,000 hectares of eucalyptus and pine for transmission poles and rough sawn timber, largely into the local market. We are FSC certified and also ISO certified at our forestry estate. We have a carbon business, which if anybody has been tracking the carbon legislation, it's a very exciting kind of week and month. With the most recent carbon framework coming out about 3 weeks ago, very exciting for Zimbabwe and setting Zimbabwe at a global stage of leading the way with the carbon markets. We have a 160,000 clean cook stove project, which is aimed at reducing deforestation through the use of a rocket stove. So that has been rolled out. We supply these stoves to various rural communities and then generate carbon credits thereafter, which we hope to sell in the next month. And then we have a commercial and industrial solar business with about 10 megawatts that's been installed so far, both on agricultural estates as well as commercial businesses. And this is aimed at energy, ensuring good energy for businesses so that they can operate efficiently. So on Cicada Agriculture, we are an agricultural business growing avocados, macadamias, and bananas, as you saw in the video. And we also have a row cropping business with about 600 hectares under row crops. Why we're here today, and I think this has been touched on a little bit by some of the panelists, is that we are seeking investment to secure a sustainable capital structure. Cicada Agriculture has been built with shareholder funding. We have very supportive, actually European shareholders who have gotten this business through the last 5 years and essentially de-risked this platform. But we're at a point now where we're growing 9, 10-year crops on 3-year financing, and that's expensive financing, and that just does not work for this business. So we're here to show a really good opportunity, and I think this is something that is common in the Zimbabwean market, where we need to get long-term, well-priced debt in order to be able to finish the orchard development, complete our CapEx program, as well as scale up our small-scale farming and biodiversity and carbon asset. So currently, that's the investment asked there, so $10 million of long-term, well-priced debt. As Liam alluded to, this is 6 to 10%, 8 to 10-year money that is required to be able to make a business like this profitable and operate really well. Our shareholders are already going to put in another $5 million of equity, and we'll be fundraising an additional $8 million of equity. And then Cicada has a very unique way of operating in that we consider ourselves an ecosystem management business. So if we don't look after the soil, the trees, the people who make our business operate, we don't have a business in 20 years. And we want to be a 20, 30, 40-year business. So we have a very ambitious impact and sustainability program, which will be supported through a technical assistance program. Something that's key to note about Cicada is that we also have a growth opportunity. So once we secure our capital structure, we're well positioned to scale up by another 800 hectares of readily available irrigable land as well. I'll go to the next slide, thanks. Just one back again. Anyway, so we have the commercial farming platform, which is comprised of 2,000 hectares of established crops. We have 1,200 hectares of avocado and macadamia crops, 200 hectares of bananas, and 600 hectares of row crops. These two businesses are supported by our small-scale farming scheme. As Karen spoke about, this is critical to the sustainability strategy of the business. We need to ensure that our communities around our farms buy into the values and priorities that we believe in, but this has to make sense for them as well. So the small-scale farming scheme, which is now at 800 farmers and is set to grow to 6,500 farmers by 2030, is a climate-smart agriculture program where we provide agricultural extension services, input packs, and we also provide markets to those farmers for their products. The key aim of this is that by 2030, a large portion of the farmers who go through the different levels in the program will then have access to our vertical value chain and be able to grow avocados and macadamias and coffee, which are provided to the farmers by ourselves, and then we are providing them a European export market for those products to go into, thereby providing them food security, but an additional line of livelihood and income. Then we have our agri-tech laboratory. This was born out of the fact that we believe as Cicada within our sustainability strategy, which heavily underpins our business strategy, that we need to be able to make decisions based on evidence. We have to have transparent information that is correct and that we can make decisions based on that. So we now have a soil lab that offers a range of different analyses that we are also getting supported through the EU on that to scale that up to be able to provide the whole horticultural sector quality tests so that they can then export their products. So here you can see where our estates are located, and one of the key things that Cicada believes in is growing the right things in the right places. So we have estates in high-yielding areas of the country, characterized by really good rainfall, by excellent climate, and amazing communities as well. We do see that for the most part, particularly our Makandi estates in Chipinge, which are our mature estates, are actually the highest yielding estates in comparison to regional peers. So that just speaks to the fact that the climate in this country is so good for agriculture. So this area, which we can go on to the next slide, positions us really well for growth. So we have these excellent locations, great climate, great people, good water, and we have an additional area that we can expand. So this really positions Cicada for additional growth. This business has been de-risked already through shareholder support, and we're out of the greenfield stage of all of our estates. We have the necessary infrastructure, we have the necessary water, and we have the right people, and we have the land ready to expand. All we need is well-priced, long-term, patient capital that understands what we're trying to achieve and the impact that that money can have, not just commercially, but from a sustainability perspective as well. This opportunity creates massive impact, and if we go on to the next slide, I can just talk through it. With some technical assistance funding, and regardless of whether we get technical assistance funding or not, we will be continuing with both these projects. We want to scale our small-scale farming project from 800 currently farmers to 6,500. This will be about 900 hectares under cultivation. But the point is using the land that is available to the best of its capacity. Let's get the best productivity out of smaller pieces of land instead of degrading additional land and having lower yields. So we are seeing increases in yields, as Honorable Deputy Minister said, 300 to 400% increase in yields as a result of climate-smart agriculture. And again, these farmers have ready markets provided through Cicada to be able to sell their products to. We've already spent just about $750,000 on this project already, which is a CSR project for us, but to be able to scale this up, we need additional funding. Something that is very exciting for Cicada, and I think that makes us unique to a lot of businesses globally, is our view of our natural asset. We have about 4,000 hectares of land that we have allocated to biodiversity conservation. This is well above the 30% target of the coming Montreal biodiversity targets, and we believe that we need to build this as an asset on our balance sheet, and this can be done through Plan Vivo Nature is the framework that we've decided to use to essentially generate biodiversity credits and carbon credits that are then put on our balance sheet as an asset. This is very new, I think, globally, and we're excited that we're being able to lead this in Zimbabwe. It's exciting with COP15 coming up and a range of other things that are happening this week with SADC task. So we feel that this sets us apart from an impact perspective, which leads us onto the last slide, which just speaks to the various SDGs that this investment would impact. We've got SDG Life on Land, so conservation, no poverty and zero hunger. That's through our small-scale farming program. Good health, well-being, gender equality, and decent work. Our small-scale farming program, that figure is actually incorrect. We have actually 59% of our small-scale farmers are women. Our Clean Cook Stove project also contributes to women's livelihoods and sending children to school. And we also have climate action. So the whole of Cicada is focused on climate action. We, as the video said, we implement regenerative farming practices, climate-smart agriculture, and that's just not in our small-scale farming program, that's on the estate. We are moving towards using biologicals. Wherever possible, we have biological blocks. I think we've got about up to 72 hectares of macadamias and biologicals now, and we're seeing that our quality coming out of those blocks is equal to those with conventional chemicals as well. So I hope that this little pitch has ended the afternoon, well, not ended the afternoon, sorry, Ranga, but kind of closed with this little part well, that this is the kind of opportunities that are here. I mean, we're excited about our particular opportunity, and I think we present a very unique opportunity, but there are challenges that I think are being addressed, but I think one of the key things that Liam touched on is that funding in this country is not set for horticulture, and we do need to deal with that to be able to grow our horticultural sector to, I think, the ambitions that everybody on the stage has. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that presentation. Unfortunately or fortunately, it's not the last presentation. There's just one more that has been snuck in. That is the advantage of being the moderator, I think. So quickly, if we can play the last video, Mandla, and that will be our last presentation before the last questions. you'll see why I snuck it in, I think.
I want to thank Sebo Citrus Park for coming with this kind of a project which made us become so excited to be part of. And I'm also happy to mention that I was one of the first beneficiaries of this project. I want to thank government for creating an enabling environment for business to thrive. What you are seeing here is as a result of private partners coming together to do business. The infrastructure you are seeing is quite massive. The dam and all these things you are seeing, the plants. Chegutu area, the climate is very, very conducive for the growing of citrus fruits.
Ndiri kunzwa kufara kuti mushure mekushanya kwatakaita South Africa muna 2017 about 8 years ago tichinoona mabasa ari kuitwa neDona nevagari vemuSouth Africa. Zvacho izvo zvatikaona uku ndo zvaakuitwa kuno neSebo Park Estates. Macommunities edu apinda mukati mebasa rakadaro iroro. Chinova changa chiti chishuviro chedu chokuti dai zvanga zvaita muno muZimbabwe. Tinotenda zvikuru kuti Sebo nemacommunities tabatana tarima michero chakubatsira nyika kusimuka zvokuti by 2030 tienda pafull production yekuburitsa mafruits export yelocal consumption nemajuice taakuzviita muno muZimbabwe. Saka zvinofadza zvikuru.
Chegutu Citrus Venture is coming at a very critical time and at the right time when I think all the opportunity has presented itself in the best way. Now is the time for communities to get involved in creating a Zimbabwe citrus industry. There has been significant progress, and I think this progress is coming at a time when government itself is presented with the Economic Empowerment Bill. The Economic Empowerment Bill takes over from the Indigenization and Economic Empowerment Act. And so I think it's an opportunity now for government to support its communities in terms of empowering them through use of their natural resources, and land being one of these resources. From an investment perspective, it's important that we have ZIDA supporting this venture. We have the different ministries like Ministry of Lands supporting this venture, Ministry of Industry and Commerce supporting the venture. We have had already the provincial authorities, that's Mashonaland West Province, fully behind this venture in terms of establishing a special economic zone within their province. So I think it's a most opportune moment.
Quickly, just 2 minutes, highlight the main highlights of the citrus investment as one of the hub and spoke models under HDC. The first part was tenure. Citrus is a long-term crop. So for any investor, there's always concern that, look, if I put a tree that's going to be there for the next 30 years or so, am I guaranteed tenure of that investment? Thankfully, Ministry of Lands was fully behind the investment and approved all the joint venture agreements that were then signed between the local, by the way, it's a local investor that is doing that, between the local investor and the farmers that are now part of this, about 200 hectares now under production, and also including the supporting infrastructure. And this is clearly an empowerment of communities within Chegutu. Focusing on the A1, A2 farmers that are now benefiting in terms of productivity. And I think looking back for the farmers now with the new title deeds, the conversation we're now actually having with the farmers is how they can pay for their title deeds using the revenue that is coming from the citrus. So there's now productivity on the farm that's guaranteed, and how then can they secure title? And obviously, as an investor, you want title, so you'd obviously then engage in that discussion with the farmers. The marketing, Dodil has also partnered with Lona. Lona is the 4th largest exporter of citrus in South Africa. Zimbabwe has that advantage that we're talking about, our citrus, in that I think it's about 8 weeks. As the season starts, we go in early, and then as the season ends for others, for South Africa, we've got an extra mileage of about 4 weeks. So that's why Lona also was interested in Zimbabwe to market our citrus. So some of the citrus actually going through South Africa, like many Zimbabwean things, Victoria Falls, for example, actually coming from Zimbabwe and through South Africa. So that is the opportunity and the value that Zimbabwe has. At some point, the project was actually offering government, when we initially started, 5% of the revenue from the citrus to then compensate the old farmer who was on that particular land where the citrus was being grown. This was actually officially offered. And the reason for that was to say, look, you know, with unfortunately, again, the bad media publicity, where you had this issue of contested land in terms of marketing European market, accessing European markets. So the idea was that if we then, from the production, help deal with the compensation issues, then that land should then be removed as contested land. But again, these are just ideas that we're coming through. Financing, again, you need financing that is patient capital. Citrus cannot get any financing above 8%. So we've been engaging with pension funds that we think should be more, willing to come on board from an equity perspective. And then water. Without water, there's no citrus. So water is a big thing, but again, a little bit of innovation. Part of this the investment being sought out will actually construct a dam in Chegutu Chikanga Dam. That's a proposal that's been made by the investors, the local investors, and this will open up 1,500 new hectares of citrus. As Linda showed on one of her presentations, there's only about 4,000 hectares of citrus for export in Zimbabwe, and the target, I think, for 2030 is at 8,000. So that's double that. So if Chegutu can put in another 1,500, that will go a long way towards meeting that target. And then opportunities that have arisen in the citrus industry is because of the decimation of other areas like Florida from the disease, Brazil from disease, Asian greening, and water as well. So that's an opportunity for Africa and Zimbabwe in particular to actually fill in that gap. Juicing has become one of the most lucrative sectors within citrus. South Africa is now juicing a lot of its citrus because of that gap that's been created internationally, and juicing is actually giving more returns than the fruit itself. A dry port. Another proposal is that Chegutu becomes a dry port for exporting citrus outside of Zimbabwe, and we've been engaging with ZIDA for this, and hopefully to get an SEZ from ZIDA. So that's what we're doing. And just speaking very briefly on the juicing, I did ask Munyaradzi Chauruka to stand up. What they're trying to do is to invest in dragon fruit. I think maybe they are the largest now, or planning to be the largest producer of dragon fruit in Zimbabwe, having already generated seedlings for about 100 hectares that they're actually planning on pursuing. Because again, in Zimbabwe, there's a lot of consumption of your energy drinks and so on. So they want to capitalize on that and produce locally. So those are just the examples of opportunities in Zimbabwe. Thank you. I'll allow for quick questions. Any questions to the panelists? You cannot ask me a question. I'm the moderator. So I'll take advantage of that. Any questions? Yes, the gentleman there.
It's not a question per se. I'll probably just make two submissions. I'll try as much as possible to wear two hats. Probably starting with the first one of the organization that I represent. My name is Nicholas Nicodemus. I'm the institutional funding advisor with site servers supporting East, Central, and Southern Africa. Congratulations to the EU team. Congratulations to the Zimbabwean government for such a platform, for such an opportunity that would definitely open up a lot of opportunities. And I was sitting and just listening throughout the discussions from our panelists, and I think there was one word that I thought may be missing in terms of unlocking sustainable trade and investment here in Zimbabwe, and that word is inclusive, sustainable trade. And yeah, we as an organization, we do support the private sector to be more inclusive in terms of investment, to be more inclusive in terms of trade opportunities. We represent and support the rights of persons with disabilities. And I was just thinking through that we have created many agricultural value chains in Uganda, in Malawi, working with the East Africa breweries, working with sorghum farmers. And I would also wish and hope that we do create inclusive agricultural value chains also here in country to also include people with disabilities within the agricultural value chain and also increase the confidence of the private sector to employ and work with people with disabilities. And within that background, we have also supported the launch of the National Business Disability Network, which is an ILO-led initiative across a number of countries. The Honorable Minister also launched that here in Zimbabwe, and I think it would also be a platform and a vehicle to make sure that our trade and investment is inclusive. Lastly, allow me to just wear another hat as a developmental economist, just to echo what the Honorable Minister said in terms of value addition. This was also echoed by His Excellency Honorable Mseveni last month during the Kampala Declaration of the Africa Regional Forum on Sustainable Development. And as Africa, or rather as a country, we are sitting here with so many opportunities on offer, with many European countries that are the largest consumers of many agricultural products that stem from Africa. You talk of the blueberries, you talk of coffee, you talk of cheese, but the biggest challenge here has been issues around value addition. And yeah, I think if that's an area that we could focus on in terms of major investments in country, obviously with the support of the European team, that would definitely increase our footprints within our horticulture industry and also position our country on the global stage in terms of value addition of all our agricultural products. So yeah, yes, Honorable Minister, just to echo that we also do share the same sentiments in terms of if we could harness that opportunity and if we could get investments in that regard in terms of ensuring that whatever that we produce leave this country at the highest level in terms of the production value chain. Thank you, and over.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments, briefly, please? I'm trying to make sure I give back the mic to Ruveneko at exactly 5.
Thank you. I represent Mutiwehova Group, a startup in industrial hemp. My name is Grace Pumbidzai. Firstly, I think I speak on behalf of all industrial hemp producers when I pay tribute to the Minister of Agriculture to thank you for deregulating the crop. Industrial hemp is in the family of cannabis. It just doesn't have the element that makes you high. It represents an alternative to wood. It represents an alternative to plastic. It represents an additional income stream for our farmers. We do have off-takes to the EU. We could use more off-takes. My issue or the point I would like to make and the request that I have is for the Ministry of Agriculture to ask that it be deregulated further, one. Two, to ask if there is a possibility of perhaps quarantining hemp fields, an area of the country that can be dedicated to the production of industrial hemp, given how easily it can turn into the other cousin. So that way we would reduce the cost of securing it. Secondly, we would produce it in enough quantities to be able to run product lines. The most important, I think, property that industrial hemp has is its capacity to sequester carbon. We'd basically be creating renewable carbon sinks. To that end, I think every company that runs a car, every company that burns fuel has an interest in seeing to it that the industrial hemp industry works. If we do not get the amount of land that we need at a cost that is sustainable, we will end up producing each as a small farmer to the extent that we can with the limited resources that we have. And what we have right now is the capacity to produce for off-takers that are abroad. So we won't be value adding. We are perpetuating the practice where we produce raw materials for other industries in other parts of the world to benefit from. But we've got the licenses, and thanks to the Ministry of Agriculture, we've got the chemical formulas, we've got the partners, serious partners that are prepared to support us. There is nothing in this room that you can't make from industrial hemp. So what we need is support to get the land in enough hectarage to make meaningful impact and to be able to produce enough quantities to produce our paper. And there's also need for, and I think the Ministry of Agriculture would be best placed to champion that effort. There's need to look at policies that address issues like using black granite as our tombstone monuments. We are taking something that took eons to create and putting it as an ornament for a grave. We can make beautiful alternates to that using industrial hemp. So there is need to have policies that are far-reaching, that acknowledge the finiteness of some of the resources that we have, and the alternatives are all housed in industrial hemp. Thank you.
Thank you. And can we please just have very quick feedback so that we just wind up and allow a few more hands there.
Okay. Good afternoon. I was just listening to her as she was giving her presentation, and as a farmer, well, I'm a landowner who hasn't been farming, and want to take this opportunity to be able to appeal to the EU that are here, the EU members that are here, that we have land that is available. But as you have heard, that getting finance in Zimbabwe is very, very difficult. And I just want to take this opportunity to appeal that you would consider some of us that haven't been farming but have got the land. And then secondly, I just wanted to also say that she mentioned that she would appreciate the quarantining of hemp into a certain area. Well, I object to that. So I think that's my contribution.
Thank you. There was one hand here. I think the last hand. Okay, the last hand, just two last hands, and then we can wind up. Just these two last ones. Quickly, she will take it from you.
Hello. Hello, my name is Samuel Mangwanda. I'm a young farmer. I'm currently studying at Blackford B College of Agriculture. My question is directed to Mr. Philip. You know, I understand that a lot of people in here have already been doing a lot of work in the commercial industry. Like I'm seeing there's the Honorable Deputy Minister, there's the owner of Securico, there's even the Nigel Chanaki right over there. But, you know, as someone who does not yet have like solid, like more than 5 years experience in the industry, I would like to ask, sir, when you were talking about how you started your project, you know, you said something similar to what I have been trying to do. As a Zimbabwean, of course, we're very passionate and enthusiastic, like why I'm sitting on the front row right now. But I wanted to ask, how can I get an investor to buy into my vision, although I'm starting completely from scratch? I've currently done a few projects which were being funded by my dad, but it's not really something which you can put up there on the scale as like what you said. Like when you're starting out Montgomery, the beans, it's something that you understood as your vision, and you understood it was very practical. You said get creative with your funding. I would like to ask for what advice can you give for me when I'm getting creative with my funding and to really get people to buy into my vision? Thank you, sir.
The last person, Munya. Can I ask for coffee between this gentleman and Liam at some point? Because I think he does need that advice coming through there. So that's on me. There will be a coffee between you and Liam.
Good afternoon, everyone. Nyaradzi Charuka from Zimbabwe Youth Council. Just like you were saying, I'm pretty sure like a lot of youth in the country, they're very eager to start getting involved. What I just want to comment on is, as a farmer, personally, and also representing the youth, as we move and start these engagements and create the value chains, it's really important for us to start including the youth, especially when it comes to these discussions that we're having. Because the issue that we have right now is that there's lack of knowledge. The youth don't have knowledge of how things can be done, or how they can take advantage of certain initiatives that are happening. And as we create these value chains, it's really important for us to involve our youth, create training programs, capacity building, and in terms of investor readiness, we've got youth that are not investor ready. We also need to train them in terms of financial literacy, even being able to then represent their company and pitch to investors, because I think that's also really a bottleneck that's there. And if you look at many of our youth, they're coming from marginalized communities, and they don't have access to this education and knowledge. So we need to develop training programs, capacity building initiatives, and also access to both local and export markets for the youth. Because we're talking about, for example, we're talking about citrus. Citrus takes about, we're saying we want the citrus to be there for the plantations to be giving us yields for 30 years, 40 years. But who are the people that are going to be there in the next 30 years and 40 years, making sure that those plantations are operating? So it's really important for us as we create these value chains, the youth need to be involved right now in these discussions. And I really thank the EU for providing such a platform. And I think at ZYC, we're really pushing for a lot of youth inclusion when it comes to these national discussions, so that we can also then disseminate the information and make sure that the youth can also take advantage of all these initiatives.
Thank you. The very last thing I'll say is, with the powers vested in me, Honorable Minister, you are now released, even before Ruveneko gives the closing remarks. Thank you so much, everyone. It has been a very good session, I think. We've got a lot of information from the Minister, from our panelists. I'm carrying these two home with me, if you'll allow me. But in a lot of interaction with everyone who's come here today. Thank you, Ruveneko.
Thank you so much to our panelists here on the stage. Thank you, Rangu, for leading that so diligently and thoroughly, as we know you to do. I remember many moons ago when I was on the Harare Youth Council and Rangu was our boss. He was at the Zimbabwe Youth Council. So I'll tell you that with young people, your job will always be to give them information. And you have a bigger challenge because they're consuming so much else right now instead of what matters and things like this. Look how many of us are in the room, how many of you are in the room. That tells you that they're in the wrong rooms. They need that information. So your work is big at Youth Council, and I hope that you do well. So the Nigel Chanakira is here. We'll hear from him tomorrow. We've got the Divine Tlukula. We've got the Chipom Tasa. We've got the Vangelis Haritatos. We've got so many these, and we look forward to your insights, and we're happy that you're here with us. So I think at the end of the day, it was said earlier by the Honorable Deputy Minister that you are the favored few to be in this room because agriculture is where it's at. So thank you to everyone for opening up our eyes and educating us and informing us. We are privileged. We're going to go out there and we're not going to share too much because we're officially the cool kids, okay? When they ask us how was it, we're like, no, it was fine, nothing too serious, you know? We're not sharing our wisdom. No, but thank you again. And please note that now we are going to go out and make our way all the way to the pool deck. We're going to go straight into our cocktail so we can close off nice and early. It really has been a long day, so we're worried that if we give a break in between, people will disappear. So please don't disappear. Make your way straight to the pool deck and let's wrap up the day together and be ready for tomorrow. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure hosting you on day 1. See you fresh, bright and early and on time for day 2. Goodbye.